Hi, I'm Millie Murillo.
I'm Ashley Torrent.
And I'm Patsy Kenny.
Welcome to the Blue Butterfly Effect podcast, a gathering place for real conversations and quiet revolutions. Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm Millie. I'm here with my co-hosts, Patsy Kenny and Ashley Torrent. Today, we want to talk about a topic that I think is very timely, at least from an astrological perspective, for me, especially from an astrological perspective. And that is the topic of the ongoing practice of transformation beyond the spaces that are held for us from practitioners. And I think that the reason this conversation is so important right now, again, from an astrological perspective, is because we are really we're already in a time, but we are moving into a new year, like 2026, that is really about catapulting us into spaces in our lives where we will really be met with an opportunity to exercise our light, to exercise our creativity, to really exercise our voice. And if we are in a space of continuing to fully identify with, I have to fix myself, with a story of, I have to continue doing this specific type of work to understand what is wrong with me. If we are in this mode of fixing, I feel like we're going to miss out on a lot of ourselves. So I think that, any kind of spiritual work, therapy, astrology, tarot, anywhere where your soul is really held, right? The space and the energy of that, I think, is going to shift, and we're going to see it more as, like, I feel, as like a means of maintenance and remembering, as opposed to fixing and even necessarily delving deep into the dark nights of the soul. Will people still have those? Absolutely. Everyone is on their own path and journey. And the astrology tells me that it's time to take the wisdom from the wounds and begin to be of service in the world in that way.
Love that.
Beautiful.
Well, so before we begin, let's take an opportunity to remember. And I love these soul resets because for me, they're my intentional way of remembering the relationship between my heart and soul, my spirituality and my humanity. So I invite you to get comfortable where you are. And you can do this with your eyes open or closed. I like to do it with my eyes closed. And I just invite you to become aware of your breath. The gentle breath, witnessing your inhale and your exhale, however your body wants to breathe right now in this moment. And remembering as you breathe, there's no right way to do this. There's no wrong way. It's just showing up and trying, playing, being curious. But the breath is such a beautiful anchor into this moment, and it also brings us in a connection to our bodies. And often as I settle into my breath, my body needs to move. I often sway back and forth. So just notice if your body needs to move as you breathe, and that's okay too. There's no rigidity. And as we breathe, we're also taking an intentional pause to shift away from the busyness of the world or our lives. You're taking an opportunity to intentionally tune into this podcast, to be present for the conversation. So honoring that intention. And as we breathe, we invite the spaciousness of love, of soul, of spirit. We invite our bodies to slow down a little bit. And as we do this, I'm always reminded what a gift this life is. That we as spiritual beings get to experience this contrast, the light and the dark, the beautiful and the terrible, the spectrum of emotions from joy to shame, fear and love. They're all different colors of the human experience. And that this life is a place for us to learn and evolve and experience so many things that we don't experience when we're not incarnated. So with the next breath, we invite the light of our souls to the forefront of our awareness as we invite that spark of divinity within us to fill our heart space, to radiate through our heart space and then to fill every corner of our being so we become radiant, illuminated. In this moment, maybe you remember your true essence, that you are love, that you are good, that you are an eternal being, that you are so much more than this human body. And breathing with your light. And maybe in this moment you understand what a miracle it is that Spirit chose to express itself through you, as you. And what does that feel like to you? And with your next breath, invite your light to move down through your legs, through your feet, through your toes, and invite a connection to the earth, your home here. Inviting a connection to this unconditional presence, this earth mama, this source of beauty and creativity. Thank you, Mama Earth, for your medicine. Thank you for all that you offer us. We offer you a prayer of peace and well-being and harmony in your soul body, your earth body. And we also take an opportunity to offer our light to the collective body. This reminder that nothing separates us, that we are all one. And that separation is an illusion. And that no act of kindness or generosity, of love or compassion is ever wasted. It all matters. So breathing with the pulse of everything that you are a part of and is a part of you. And we offer a prayer of peace and liberation in this collective body. May all beings remember their true nature. May all beings be free. And staying grounded into our humanity, we imagine or invite our light to move up through the center of our body and out the crown of our head, and invite our light to expand out into the universe so that we're radiating root to crown. The human parts of us, the divine parts of us, shining, working together, knowing that we are surrounded by love. And we offer our love and gratitude to the planets and the sun, the moon, the stars for all the ways they support our life here. Thank you to all in spirit that support our life here. And just take another breath and be with this light within you. Notice what it feels like to be present with it. And remember, if you don't feel anything, that's okay. Your intention matters. And this is a practice. And with the next breath, we become aware of our body and the room we're in, the seat underneath us once again. As we enter the space of this conversation, of living transformation, of remembering that there's nothing to fix, that we are whole. And just take a moment and open your eyes when you're ready, and then we'll begin.
So beautiful, Ash. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's moments like that that also can be transformative, right? As we dive into this topic of transformation, I was really thinking about my journey of evolution and growth and personal discovery. And there have been some key moments on my path. And I just came out of a birthday. I just celebrated another birthday, and I'm officially in my 40s now. Like I was already there, and now I'm like, okay, 41, you're in the new decade. It's you can't deny it. But I've been thinking about, okay, what have I learned about myself in the last decade? And I kind of recently came back on a video I had created for a previous business that had me like looking back through it like a dreamlike lens of like, wow, I have so much love and compassion for that version of myself, and yet there's some aspects of self I don't even recognize anymore that I've come through, and I the way I'm leading my life today is is not like I was then. And so I was reflecting on, oh, there was some key moments there where I was in retreat like settings or experiences of going through a coaching program myself where there were like epic um, threshold moments where it was like an inception point, right? Where I walked in one way and I walked out of the experience a whole different version of myself. But that who I am today has been like cumulative in the integration of those learnings from those experiences. And often in those spaces where there is a practitioner inviting us to be in deep connection with soul and self, and strangers providing that like believing mirror feedback, you start to really see yourself in a way it's hard to do when you're just walking through life without that kind of mirroring, that soul level mirroring. So I also was in a conversation with a friend recently who has been sort of newly on the path of the self-discovery, the inquiry piece. And she's like, I feel like you started this so long ago. And look at where you are now. And now she's like having a dialogue with herself almost in this tone of judgment. And it's like, there's nothing to fix. We're all in this space of, I really feel like a divinely paced life. And to be able to walk that dance of balance between like recognizing aspects of self that get us to a new spot in our evolution, and also being reminded and remembering that like it's all unfolding in beautiful divine timing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask how that lands with each of you.
Yeah, I think that, as I mentioned earlier, we're entering a time where we have to trust that if we've been on this path, right, of inner work and understanding and asking questions, we are entering a time where there will be no space, I think, time and space for hesitation and self doubt. And so, what that gives us is the opportunity to trust that all of what we've been doing is there, right? A lot of times, I think we're on this path of healing, kind of like seeking like these big moments and these big breakthroughs and these big manifestations, right? Like if I just do XYZ, then I'm going to get the relationship, then I'm going to get the job, then I'm going to get the money. And I don't think that that's necessarily like people's fault. I think that is one, I think it's a very natural human thing to desire material manifestations of what we want to experience. And I think that's part of the human experience, right? And it's beautiful. And I also think that this type of work has been sold and marketed in a certain way where this transformation and these little things that add up over time have been sold, um you know in 4 weeks you're going to be a completely different person, right? Have When I've held space for clients and even within myself, if I work with a client for a certain number of weeks, have there been times where they're a completely different person? Absolutely. And there are other times where it's taken a little longer because everyone is on their own path. Everyone's in their own journey, at their own pace. Um, it's so different. It's a world. Everyone is their own universe, right? And so one of the things that I realized, because I too have worked with coaches, and have been so fortunate to have had space held for me, whether it's coaches or therapy or retreats, that I realized that at the time, that is the coach, that is the therapist, or that is the retreat that I needed, right? Are there some of those spaces that I would go back to now? Not really, because it's different. I'm different. But at that moment, it was exactly what I needed. And there isn't, and I think that I'm very fortunate in this way. Every single coach I've worked with, I still have pieces of their wisdom in me, whether it's in my journals, whether it's because they've created something online that I actually go back to, right? Or it's just things that they said, gems that they shared with me that just stayed with me, and I go back to that. And so they left those little pieces, those nuggets, gold nuggets of their wisdom in me, right? All of that to say that it has required my practice and not the expectation that I was going to go into their container for however long, and that I was going to be this completely different person, because I think there was enough self awareness in me to say, maybe that's not what's going to happen, and that's okay. I know, but I know that I want to be here, and I'm really curious as to why.
When you said we are our own universes, that brought tears to my eyes. Like, I love that idea of it. It just brings so much of like responsibility, but reminder that this is such a unique journey. And I love astrology because astrology for me is such a reflection of this is your unique path here and all these possibilities. And um, I just feel like the world as it is made of timelines and expectations and paths of the way things should look. And it's just not how it happens at all. It's just not. Like, transformation doesn't look how it's sold. Like, spirituality does not look like how it's sold. Patsy and I were joking that not all spiritual women wear gauzy cotton organic dresses and float around everywhere. I'm like, stop selling us this brand of like healing and spirituality. That's nonsense. It's such an individual practice and life and experience. And I mean, for me, when Patsy, where you were talking about like where you started, I think about the therapy offices I was sitting with as a kid, watching, my family get therapy. And then when I started therapy, and just like the different therapists I've had, who some of them have been incredible and some of them not, but each not incredible was an opportunity for me to leave, an opportunity for me to understand what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And I have been on this journey for a long time now, and I'm 51. And I'm experiencing a time where I feel reborn. Now, wouldn't it have been so heartbreaking if I looked at like the fact that I'm 51 and I feel reborn, why didn't this happen sooner? Wouldn't that just be such a shame if I felt like any of that time was wasted? Because none of it was wasted. I learned so much about myself being a parent. I learned so much about myself through being a space holder for clients. I mean, anyone that doesn't understand that when you're sitting with a client, that that's a reciprocal relationship, that you're learning just as much from them as they're learning from you. Like, but I just think like, yeah, but the thing that has made such a difference is I have, from the beginning, taken responsibility for my path. In my relationship with my partner, when they asked me to be better, to do better, I took responsibility for that. When I was flailing and completely disassociated, I took responsibility for how was I going to land here? How was I going to come into my body? And I have not given up on myself throughout that process. And that matters. No one saved me.
Absolutely.
There were things that supported me being saved, but I saved myself because I chose
Yes.
to. Yeah.
Yes. And I think there's a level, that self responsibility piece, I'm I'm taking even more to heart at this stage of
Mm.
my life. And I remember early on in that phase of seeking, there was a tendency toward outsourcing my own
Mm.
power, not because I hadn't been in the space yet to recognize my own. And in a couple of instances, attending retreats and all of that knowledge, like you said, Ash, like it has also supported your practice as a practitioner, right? Like those
Mhm.
experiences, one of my first businesses was supporting other business owners with their live events, workshops, and retreats. And I had gone through so many of them as a seeker. Like I had been taking inventory of what was, as a receiver inside those containers, of like what felt really good, what didn't feel so good. And I was able to support the next people I was helping to create those spaces with that knowledge. But to circle back to my first thought, was like the outsourcing of the power. Like I think there's a responsibility from a practitioner standpoint to remind those in the space that they do have agency, that they are in control and have this, you know, opportunity to take responsibility for self and further integrate it down the line. And it can be a little slippery as a practitioner if you're holding that space and there is this depth of connection and there's these like major moments of self-discovery for each individual in the room, and then for there to be this like hard break of like, oh, okay, out back into the world, if you haven't kind of, right, like planted the seed of these are the ways you can continue to practice your integration when you reintegrate back home, when you re-enter into your daily life, when you, right, like there's a little bit of a bridge I think that's required depending on who's in the room in that seeking spot, on the practitioner's point, from the practitioner's perspective, to kind of like lay that foundation, just kind of gently guide them on the path. Not saying you have to hold their hand the rest of the way, but just like these like in between spaces where you're shifting back into, okay, I'm a new version of me. How do I take that now into my daily life? And
Mm.
I'm met with the same people I, might not find resonance with now that I'm on this other side of the threshold.
Well, Pat, that's a really good example, and it reminds me that sometimes, as the therapist, I haven't outlined that, but people can give therapy a bad rap for the time it takes, but what people don't recognize is with people are practicing with me. Like when I've sat with my therapist, I'm practicing being a version of myself that can speak my truth. I'm practicing getting angry. I remember one time my therapist pissed me off, and I wanted to shut the computer and I wanted to walk away, but instead I said, I'm upset with you right now. Like we don't realize is that it's a relationship that we're practicing in, and it takes the time it takes sometimes. for us to get the courage to take that out into our life, into our relationships with our friends and partners. And if we have that safe space to practice, it's not an overnight transformation. Some of us were given very few skills to meet the world with. And so I've been in therapy for, oh my God, 25 years, practicing being a different version of myself until I was ready to take it out into the world, and taking it out each time I left that space with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that self-responsibility piece is huge. And a lot of times taking self-responsibility for how to practice out in the world can be seen as a burden. I think
Mm-hmm.
that the way that this work can sometimes be sold is I'm going to give you like a formula, or I'm going to give you this steps 1 through 10, and if you follow this everything is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But that's not the way things work. And so when we take full responsibility for, if this is the conversation that I had in that space this week, for instance, how am I noticing the way that it's unfolding the rest of the week? How am I noticing the way that I'm showing up the rest of the week? This work, it's about presence, right? It's not about, I have therapy on Tuesday at 1 p.m. and that's the hour. And then I just go back to life and continue doing the things that I just keep going into these spaces for. No, we've said this before. Spirituality is a practice, presence is a practice. There, and that self responsibility comes with saying, how am I being present in my life?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being the seeker and with wanting to understand, and you know and I think that we all through an extent go through this period of outsourcing our power,
Mm-hmm.
because we do get to a point of remembering, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one in charge here. This is only meant to reflect that back to me.
Yeah.
And I think that at some point it is healthy to just kind of stop and take the time to really integrate all of what we have sought out and
Yeah.
learned, and truly take the time to implement it.
Yes.
I remember when Ash and I held space at that uh, retreat in Costa Rica. It took me months to like integrate everything that came up for me at that retreat, everything that I learned, every like breakthrough that I had, every fear, every insecurity, everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it just takes that.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
this existence and our presence is not meant to be rushed. And I know that the world rushes. I get that. And I think that the only way that we can, in fact, remember that power and who we really are is by taking self responsibility and truly, truly, am I truly integrating what I'm learning about myself in every session, every week, in every day of my life? Because it does take that. And I say that from a place of like, fuck, sometimes that's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a million little things, and the opportunity to choose differently over and or maybe you're not choosing differently, but you're remaining true to what you've now learned about yourself. So like it feels disruptive in spaces that you've been occupying before, because you're like, no, actually this thing is super important to me and I'm going
Right.
to stay steady in that, but it may, you know, create a bit of friction in relationships, or um you find like a new rhythm with people or places or, environments, like work environments, etc.
Mhm.
Um, but what came to mind as you were talking, Millie, was just this sort of exclamation point on like healing is a journey. It's not a destination. Like the transformation is the journey, and
Mhm.
it gets to be all these micro moments of integration. Yeah.
Mm.
I think there is this emphasis on like fix me culture. It's just embedded in our culture, especially here in the US. Like with all the marketing and anything you learn when you go to like run a business, and how do you share what you have to offer? Like the number one exercise is like identify the problem and then be able to speak to that problem and show how you can change. You can be the solution to that problem. And so that orientation it's so deeply embedded. Um, but it's a little dangerous because it's like it's mm, there's an expectation that then kind of gets overlaid into showing up in these spaces as a seeker, that oh, your problem's going to be fixed, or you're walking through life with this like narrative of criticism that you haven't figured it out by now, or there's something wrong with you, or also the time piece, the rush that you named, Ash. Like there are certain milestones you should reach in our culture, especially present right now as I cross into this like new threshold of I'm in my 40s, where okay, well, I my life doesn't look like a lot of my friends' lives in their 40s. And there could be a negative narrative about that. Um but I'm in this place right now. I love that you named, like, you feel like you're living in a rebirth era, Ash. Like I'm excited. I'm like, oh, 40s feel great. Like I know myself like I've never known myself before. I have set my life up to orient around my preferences. Like I feel a level of fulfillment every day, but that's because I've been also in that space of like integrating these awarenesses of self over time.
Mhm.
Mm.
And you've made a lot of hard choices to create the life that you're living now. You've made like it, in witnessing you, you've
Yeah.
made difficult choices to leave relationships or spaces that don't feel good. It's not like you were just like waiting for it to happen. Like you were actively participating in curating and creating a life of your dreams.
That's also another thing that I think is important to remember, because it's like we want everything to change, but we don't want to have to make those changes happen or change ourselves. I want
Yeah.
everything to change, but I want it to change in a way that feels really comfortable and good. Right?
So
And and I laugh at that because I think we've all been there. We've all been there in some way, shape, or form. And in hindsight, it's always like I think it tends to land in, oh man, I'm so glad that happened. I'm so glad I did that.
Mhm.
And I feel so proud of myself.
Mhm.
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 This journey is so much about remembering who we are at a soul level, remembering that we are the source, the soul.
So
Mhm.
You know,
yeah.
I think that a lot of times I'll share, like, for some time, a lot of the coaching that I've had in the past has been around like business coaching and like money coaching, right? And there was a time where I thought, if my practice and my life don't look like this, then somehow I remember not saying these things specifically, but there was a narrative back there, then somehow it failed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like, that is insane. That is bananas. That
Yeah.
is bananas.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when this happened. I think it was again just over time, and like in discussing the fears that I had and all of this, right? Because a lot of times when we're seeking something to fix the thing that we're the most afraid of will happen. And so we're
Oh,
trying to do everything around it instead of just facing the fear itself.
totally.
And
And
Yes.
then that resistance, oh my God, creates more of that
exactly,
stress. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember going on one of my walks with Jack at the park, and this question came: if I never got that, am I just never going to feel enough? And
Mhm.
I'm like, and I remember having this moment. I was like, no, I refuse. I
Yeah.
refuse to live my life with like this dangling carrot, like throughout my entire life. And it's the same. Like, if you don't have the relationship, can you recognize that you are enough without it?
Mhm.
Right? If
Mhm.
you don't have this vision, and mind you, I'm a big dreamer and I have big visions, and I will never stop being that.
Mhm.
It's what's gotten me here to live a life that I am so grateful for every single day. And I have learned that very rarely have those specific visions come to reality, but the visions have unfolded in who I have become.
Mhm.
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 And that is so important. Can we recognize and remember, because that's the point of this work, that we are enough, always in all the ways, if we never get any of what we think we need?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's a big one.
Yes, that is a big one. And sometimes that can take a long time to get there, but that is a big one. And it's the answer. It's the answer when we remember
That's the
that and
irony,
know
right?
that. Yeah, when we remember and know that we are already whole, there's there's no there's nothing for our ego to like play with because it's like our soul is bigger than that. Yeah.
Right. And that's not to say that you'll never have desires or that those desires will go away. I just think you learn to have a different relationship with them. I think you
Mhm.
learn to have a different relationship with the dreams and the visions and yeah, and all of that which you desire to experience in your human reality. But there's
Mhm.
a big difference in saying, if I don't have that, I'm not whole, I'm not
Mhm.
enough. And a big difference in saying, no, I am enough no matter what. And now I have a different relationship with that. Now I can allow it to come when it will. And like you
Mhm.
said, that takes a long time. And what's the hurry?
Sorry. Yeah, the trust piece. So I feel like we return to that every episode, the trust and the self-responsibility and the trust and the co-creation with the universe and the trust. I mean, in this recent reflection of me looking back in time around the business I created a decade, 11 years ago, I'm like, wow, the themes have always been there. The themes are like they've taken new shape and form, but my God, like that wisdom, that knowing, that philosophy, it was there all along. That's like an
Mhm.
aspect, an essence of who I am. And it's being
Mhm.
expressed slightly differently now. And I feel way more embodied than I did then. There's nothing left to prove. At the time, I definitely was oriented around like proving, um, you know? And now I'm like, yeah, in this acceptance of like, it's going to take what it takes, but I'm here to nurture those dreams excitedly in the time that I have at the moment. And that may change,
Mhm.
you know? Yeah.
Well, and it's gonna change. That's the thing. It's gonna change.
Right. Exactly. So what I was going to say is the one of the beautiful things about astrology is that it shows us that we go through very specific cycles, right? We go through Saturn returns, we go through Pluto squares, we go through nodal returns. We go through these really big cycles that, you know, dismantle parts of our lives.
Yeah.
And for instance, still haven't experienced my Pluto square. That what that means is that transiting Pluto in the sky, it's going to create an aspect of tension, a 90-degree angle to my natal Pluto in my chart. Everyone goes through that. I've worked with so many clients who move through that. I am, I'll be very honest, I'm kind of scared. And I'm like, because I see it and I see what's happening. I'm like, fuck, 2 years of that. I'm like, oh my God. But I remember
Mhm.
I've been through other transits before, and it's this matter of like, what am I gonna do? Like
Yeah.
it's written. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. In the past, I have gone there where it's I freak out and then I move through the transit, and not that it was easy, but it was never what anticipated it was going to be. And every single time, I've actually, in hindsight, been grateful that I went through it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And it has changed everything.
Yeah.
And astrology shows us these are certain chapters that we have to move through.
Mhm.
And we can't outsmart them, we can't outrun them, we can't prepare, right? The most that we can do to prepare, if you will, is surrender and have enough self-trust. And so this entire journey of life and all of this work, all of these different modalities are there to remind us of that,
Mhm.
right? I think it's Dolores. Yeah, it was Dolores Cannon who said that Earth is the hardest school that exists in the entire universe. That
Mhm.
anyone who incarnated as a human being really is getting a PhD in life, and that's what it feels like sometimes.
Oh God, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes you don't realize how hard the class is going to be that you signed up for. Like your
No,
reflection back to me, Ash, around making hard choices and being, I'm like, yeah, when I look back on the last 11 years, I'm like, 8 of the 11 were fucking brutal. Like
Yeah.
they were really, really hard. And there was a
yeah,
moment on the path where I was like, okay, now I'm surrendering again. Like maybe this is as good as it gets. And this good feels so challenging. But in the
Mhm.
surrender of that, eventually, to your point before, Ashley, like it's like, and it will evolve, like it will change again.
It will
And these
change.
cycles you name, Millie, it's like it will change. It will change.
It will change. There's been a couple of times where I've said out loud to my husband, Lair, I've said like, I don't know if I have the strength to walk through that. And that's the thing when you say that, that's the thing you really need to walk through to reclaim yourself. And I have walked through those places, but I remember feeling like I can't confront that, like deep trauma that I was like, I don't have the strength to do it. And you know what? At the time I didn't. But a few years later, just like I did find the strength and I did find a way to walk through it. And walking through those places that I thought I could never walk through gave me my like myself back. I'm free because I chose to walk through them. And I also feel like we don't spend enough time celebrating ourselves for walking through these things. Like I'll see people and I'll have to remind them, look at how far you've come. You just spoke your truth to that person. You made a choice that would have terrified you 3 months ago. I look back on my life all the time and I think about how I could barely get out of bed most days for a couple of years. Like walking those edges of darkness and shame, like I'll never forget that. And so I don't go back and remind myself to walk through the darkness, but I to remind myself, oh my God, like the light that I carry now, I just felt like I was a walking dark puddle back then. And we need to along the way stop and integrate and take stock and go, man, I'm fucking here. I'm still here. That didn't end me.
yes.
And that is worth celebrating. This school life is hard. And I've witnessed people for what is it now, like 20 something years. It is not easy. And I've said this before. I am, as much as I've seen, I am continuously surprised at how dark the human condition is and the things that people do to each other and to themselves. It is a dark space and no one gets out unscathed. So, like, we need to celebrate, like, man, I am here. I did that. No matter how small it is that you think it is, it's probably huge. And we need to be talking about it and integrating and spending time with it, not skipping over it and not looking to, gosh, I wish I was there. Okay, I know you wish you were there, but also, wow, you are here. And that's a miracle.
Look where you are.
Yeah.
Amen.
And I think honoring and celebrating those moments for ourselves allows us to remember to not put any one person or practice or, practitioner or anything on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because to do this work is an immense privilege, I think. Immense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has been taken in a really interesting direction at this moment in time and in the world that we live in. But if you are the one moving through your stuff and you are the one who is showing up for yourself and genuinely trying to understand, no one is no one ever is above you, but that is the thing that has to remind you of, oh, this is about my path, my journey.
Yeah.
This person that I'm, sitting across from, or that is holding space for me, is only a reflection of that, or only meant to really be a reflection of the power or the source that exists within me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And so when we go back to this feeling of like, look how much I've done, and this is only how far I've gotten, and what have I been doing, we, especially if the finger is being pointed outward, it can be, that is incredibly disempowering. And you have to remind yourself, no, I am the source. I
Mm-hmm.
am the source.
Yeah. Those I am statements are so
Mhm.
powerful. It's such a perfect way to remember to like return
Yeah.
to them. Like I am love. I am abundance. I am. When you start to walk through the world through that lens, that power kind of like magnetizes right back, helps recenter. But those
Right.
dynamics of, like just again, the other part of that, Millie, is like we're all just people. We're all walking our individual paths in our own little universes, and our universes happen to cross, like the orbits cross over every now and then, and we get to bump into one another and mirror back to one another information that can further refine our time here and the way we want
Yes.
to spend it.
So I'm really excited to share that I am holding my first in person event in Los Angeles on Sunday, December 7th. So I, I've done stuff in person before, but this is my first like in person solo event. And I'm going to be talking about the energy of 2026 and what's ahead. And I love that it's, being opened up in a group. So if you are in LA or you feel like taking, a short trip to LA and spend the weekend or a few days in LA, this is going to be again on Sunday, December 7th, from between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. And it's a great resource in addition to the individual reading of the 2026 year ahead reading, which is just you and me going through your specific chart and those transits. But I would love to meet you in person, and I would love to just share that space with you.
So beautiful. I'm so excited to hear about that experience, Millie. As for what I have to offer, I am gearing up to package all the events knowledge that I have. So, if you are a practitioner, a business owner who is looking to plan a live experience in 2026, be that a workshop setting, a retreat, a conference, a live in person gathering, I am looking for a handful of people to join me as I package this content to be working through it with me in a beta form. So I'm going to have a link on my website specific to those who are interested in walking through this content together. And eventually I will be packaging that content as a standalone course that you can move through at your own pace. So you can find more details about that in the show notes. Ash, how about you?
And I have two events next year. I have one, the In Bloom Summit, and it's in Vancouver, Canada. It's hosted by Real Love Ready, and it's a love and relationship summit that I will be speaking out with my husband, Lair, and other practitioners and authors in the space. I'm very excited, and my lovely co-host will be there to support me, and we'll be together. The other event I have is a soul reset retreat here in Playa Grande, February 28th through March 7th. And I'm co-hosting that with my friend and fellow therapist, Carrie Higgins. It'll be a time to surf. We're going to have good food. It'll be a time to do some intuitive understanding of the internal guidance system of our soul. It's just really going to be a lovely opportunity to connect through community and just be in Costa Rica, which is a beautiful place to slow down. And you can find out information in the show notes, or you can go to my website. It's the Soul Reset Retreat. And I have to say that Patsy helped me put this together. So if you see the retreat page, it is beautiful because of Patsy. And I have just really soaked up a lot of her wisdom about gatherings and events that she shared with me. So I really recommend that you go to her if you have something you're planning and just really use her as a resource. It's invaluable. So
thank you all so much for being with us and continuing to share your comments and your feedback. We appreciate you deeply. Until next time.
Much
until
love.
next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. If something stirred your soul or made you smile, share it with a friend or leave us a review. Until next time.